The morning Rowan Castillo met his boss on the beach, he was standing ankle-deep in cold seawater, trying to convince his 6-year-old son that the world was still a safe place. The tide kept rushing in, tugging at his worn jeans, and for a moment he felt as if the ocean itself was trying to pull him under, just like the past year of his life had done. He had lost his wife to illness, nearly lost his job to grief, and almost lost himself to exhaustion. And then, under the wide blue sky of an ordinary Tuesday, one unexpected sentence changed everything. Before we continue, if you believe in kindness and second chances, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel Kindness Journal. Stories like this remind us that even the most broken chapters can lead to beautiful beginnings. Rowan had never imagined he would become a single father at 32. He used to be the quiet but reliable operations manager at a growing architectural firm in Brighton Cove. He was good with numbers, schedules, and solving problems that others avoided. At home, he was the playful parent, the one who built pillow forts and made Saturday pancakes. When his wife, Marisol, got sick, life narrowed into hospital corridors, whispered prayers, and the beeping of machines. After she passed, the world did not pause. Bills kept arriving. Deadlines did not soften. His son, Kai, still needed breakfast every morning and bedtime stories every night. Rowan tried to return to work too soon. He told himself he had no choice. But grief has a way of seeping into everything. He missed emails. He forgot meetings. He stared at spreadsheets without seeing the numbers. Rumors spread that the new CEO, Ilara Vance, was strict, driven, and not particularly patient with underperformance. She had taken over the company only months earlier, bringing with her a reputation for turning struggling firms into thriving enterprises. Rowan had seen her only once at a company-wide meeting. She stood tall, composed, sunlight pouring through the conference room windows behind her, speaking about accountability and vision. He had admired her confidence but feared becoming a casualty of her high standards. One particularly restless night, after Kai woke from another nightmare about hospitals and white rooms, Rowan decided they both needed air. It was a bright, breezy morning when they drove to the beach. The sky was clear, the kind of hopeful blue that made everything feel possible, even if just for a few hours. The sand was warm underfoot, and seagulls swooped lazily above. Kai ran ahead, his small footprints scattered across the shore like a trail of fragile hope. Rowan stood at the edge of the water watching his son laugh for the first time in days. The sound was soft, but it was real. He felt the tightness in his chest ease slightly. He closed his eyes and let the sun warm his face. That was when he heard footsteps crunching against the sand behind him. He turned casually, expecting a stranger, and felt his stomach drop. Ilara Vance was walking toward the water, barefoot, her dark hair pulled into a loose knot, sunglasses shielding her eyes. She was dressed simply, nothing like the polished executive from the boardroom. For a brief second, panic flooded Rowan's veins. He imagined the unfinished reports on his desk. He imagined a termination letter delivered with professional sympathy. He imagined failing his son in yet another way. She seemed surprised to see him too, but not displeased. There was no trace of corporate severity in her posture. Instead, there was something softer, almost reflective, as she glanced at Kai splashing in the shallows. Rowan braced himself, heart pounding louder than the waves. Ilara stepped beside him and looked out at the horizon before speaking. Her voice carried no judgment, only a calm honesty. She said that she had noticed he had been struggling, that she could see it in the way he held himself during meetings, in the shadows under his eyes. She did not mention missed deadlines. She did not talk about performance metrics. Instead, she said something that made his breath catch. She told him that no job was more important than healing, and that the company could wait for numbers, but a child could not wait for a father who was present. The words sank into him like sunlight breaking through heavy clouds. Rowan had expected criticism. He had prepared defenses and apologies. What he had not prepared for was understanding. In that simple acknowledgement of his humanity, something shifted. For the first time since Marisol's passing, he did not feel like he was drowning alone. Elara continued, explaining that she had grown up watching her own father work himself into exhaustion after losing her mother. She spoke of how she used to sit by the window waiting for him to come home before dark, only to fall asleep with the porch light still on. She said she had built her career on ambition, but she had learned the hard way that success meant little if it cost the people who needed you most. She told Rowan that if he needed flexible hours, remote days, or time to breathe, he should take it. The firm would adapt. Rowan felt a tightness in his throat he could not swallow away. The ocean blurred in front of him as his eyes filled. He had spent months believing he was weak, failing both as a father and an employee. Yet here was the very person he feared most offering grace instead of reprimand. It was not just the generosity of her offer that moved him. It was the fact that she had seen him. Not the employee. Not the liability. Him. Kai ran back toward them then, holding a crooked sandcastle in his small hands as if it were treasure. Elara knelt without hesitation, examining the fragile tower with genuine admiration. She asked him about his design, about the imaginary king who would live inside. Kai, usually shy around strangers, began explaining every detail with animated excitement. Rowan watched the scene with a quiet ache. There was something deeply beautiful about seeing strength and gentleness coexist so effortlessly. The rest of that morning unfolded in simple, luminous moments. They walked along the shore, speaking about life beyond quarterly goals and profit margins. Rowan shared memories of Marisol, of her love for morning coffee and loud music while cooking. Elara listened, not as a superior collecting information, but as a friend holding space for grief. The sun climbed higher, casting long, golden reflections across the water. For the first time in months, Rowan felt something unfamiliar stirring beneath his sorrow. It was not a betrayal of the past. It was the faint possibility of a future. Over the following weeks, Elara kept her word. Rowan's schedule shifted to allow school drop-offs and therapy appointments. She checked in not to measure output, but to ask how Kai was adjusting. Gradually, Rowan's focus returned. He began to excel again, not out of fear, but out of gratitude. He felt seen and valued, and that changed everything about the way he worked. Their connection deepened quietly, built on mutual respect and shared vulnerability. They met occasionally for coffee during lunch breaks, conversations drifting from architectural designs to childhood dreams. Rowan noticed how her laughter came more freely outside the office, how her eyes softened when she spoke about wanting a family someday but fearing she had waited too long. He realized that the strength he admired in her was born not from perfection, but from scars. One bright afternoon months later, back on the same beach, Rowan stood watching Kai chase kites in the wind. Elara stood beside him again, the sunlight catching in her hair just as it had that first day. The ocean felt different now, less like a threat and more like a promise. Rowan understood that love had not arrived with fireworks or dramatic declarations. It had arrived in the form of kindness when he needed it most. He told her, not with rehearsed lines, but with steady sincerity, that her words on that morning had saved more than his career. They had saved his belief that life could still surprise him with goodness. Elara's eyes glistened, and she admitted that meeting him had reminded her why she had started leading in the first place, not to command, but to uplift. If this story is touching your heart so far, take a moment to engage with this video. Like it, share it with someone who needs hope, and let us know your thoughts. Your support helps stories of resilience and compassion reach those who may feel alone. As the sun stretched across the afternoon sky, Rowan felt something settle peacefully inside him. Loving Elara did not erase his love for Marisol. Instead, it honored it. It proved that the heart does not run out of space, it expands. Kai, laughing in the distance, ran toward them and grabbed both their hands without hesitation. In that simple gesture, Rowan saw the future unfolding, not perfectly, not without challenges, but with warmth. Special request: comment the word hope if you believe that one act of kindness can change a life. Rowan had gone to the beach that morning months ago feeling like a man barely staying afloat. He left with something far greater than relief. He left with the understanding that sometimes the person you fear most may be the one who sees you most clearly. And under the bright, forgiving light of day, with waves whispering against the shore, he learned that love does not always begin with grand gestures. Sometimes, it begins with a single sentence spoken at the right time, reminding a weary heart that it is not alone.